It might sound surprising coming from someone who's done over 500 podcasts and radio shows, but I've never been much of a talker. I was always a very shy kid. As I've gotten older, I've learned to deal with that. Sometimes, I'm on a bus and I can see a woman talking on her phone, and South London women, and apologies for the generalisation, but they do like to talk on the phone, and it always seems to be the person on the upper deck using the phone who seems to be dominating the conversation. And I'm often thinking, is the other person that we can't see, are they not actually talking? Have they got nothing to offer this conversation? And I'll see this whatever woman talking, I think I couldn't be with someone like that for no other reason than I just don't really like talking. Now, having grown up in Clapham, I knew so many people in the area that by the time I got to 16 and 17, finding that I was constantly stopping in the high street to small talk with people, I was finding that increasingly difficult. I decided to take a longer route to wherever I was going, and that's how I lived for a number of years. Now, having seen that community disappear as South London's become so gentrified, I kind of miss that, and I remember, I hark back to the days when I'd be with my dad and, or my mum, and, they'd be stopping and talking to people. And, the realization hit me pretty late in life that is community. That is how communities are built. You see people, you notice them, you become familiar with each other. And now I'm fine with that. So I can stop and talk to people. I can, shake hands with people, and I'm a bit more comfortable with that than I used to be. Sometimes I don't feel I'm the most articulate person. I might have spoken to someone, who's very well spoken. I'll be going home. I'll be in George Costanza territory, thinking I should have said this, I should have said that. But I'm better with that, and I do think it is important that you get to know people in your community. Now, I've been going to the same cafe for nearly 20 years, so I've gotten to know so many people that way, and it's nice to stop and say hello, have a handshake. I'm okay with that. I really am now. And, if something's wrong with someone and you haven't seen them for days, then, you note their absence in the cafe. You note that something might have happened. The greeting I do have a problem with, and this has happened to me several times. When you're living in an area when you've been seeing someone, they've been seeing you for 10, 20 years, and you've never exchanged a single word, and then all of a sudden a third party, someone who knows both of you, introduces you both, I find that really difficult, because I don't feel anything can come from that relationship, because you'd have to acknowledge the 10 or 20 years that you just completely ignored each other. And this happened to me some years ago when a friend introduced me to a shopkeeper. Luckily for me, I didn't use the shop that frequently, but, I'd been seeing the guy around for 20 years. He'd probably been seeing me. And I wasn't happy with that introduction. Nothing was going to come from it. Especially with shopkeepers, I don't really like to get to know shopkeepers. I've gotten to know the guy across the road when I'm buying the neighbour's paper. Now, I've gotten to know him really well over the last year, well as you can get to know a shopkeeper. And, I don't know how, I don't even dress in a way which would suggest I've got money. The guy last week, I go in there and he's trying to sell me a £4 loaf of bread. As I've said in an earlier Writer's Life post, 75p little loaf, that does me. I can drag that out for, 12 days, I think. I'm not going to buy a £4 loaf of bread, but, do you see what I mean? With that familiarity with the shopkeeper, excuse me, it kind of leads you into that territory. And for a friend to introduce me to a shopkeeper in my local area, who I'd been blanking for half my life, who'd been blanking me for a chunk of his life, we couldn't do anything with that. I wasn't going to suddenly go back into the shop a few days later and say, hey, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. We had that 10, 20 years of ignoring each other behind us. We would have had to acknowledge that before we could move on. And to be fair to this other guy, I don't think he wanted the introduction either. I think he was as cheesed off with the introduction as I was. So I'm fine with the greetings if I've gotten to know people naturally. If it's just something that's happened over a period of years, probably with me. But, don't introduce me to someone in my area, because I'm not going to welcome that, you know. The chances are we've not been acknowledging each other, we've got no hello, we've got no goodbye, we've got nothing, and you're suddenly coming in and you're introducing two people who've been ignoring each other for so long. You know, that is something that I can't do.